Call the meeting of the District of Lunenburg Municipal Council meeting to order. It is Tuesday, July 8th, and it's now 6 p.m. Welcome all those who may be watching, and welcome to the councilors and staff who are at our meeting. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Their time for announcements, acknowledgements, and recognition. I will say that Councillor Brooks and Councillor DeLong will not be with us tonight, have sent regrets. And if there are other announcements from anyone, Councillor Moore.
Just got to find it. The New Germany Royal High School Alumni Association had a wonderful 70th anniversary reunion on July 5th and 6th, attended by more than 500 alumni and guests from all across the country. Attendees reconnected and reminisced over memorabilia, barbecue pork and salad luncheon, a variety shows, soccer games, school tours, and dance. On Sunday, a meaningful memorial service with 110 people in attendance was held, recognizing more than 300 former staff and students who have passed away in the last 10 years. We were delighted to be addressed by our guest speaker, Honorable Hiram J. Carver, former warden of the municipality, who was instrumental in bringing the existing high school to our community in 1965. In addition to original teachers from the first class of 1954 to 55, Guido Hoblique Gatchel and Garth Bishop, as well as one original graduate from 1955, Eleanor Vina Taylor, were in attendance and honored. As always, our beautiful rural community played gracious host to former staff and students, and the festivities were a huge success. And I would like to congratulate the New Germany alumni for putting on such an event.
Other acknowledgements? I would like to acknowledge the work of Councillor Moore in organizing the New Germany and her committee. And I know she's very modest about this, but it is a huge event in New Germany, and I know it's very well appreciated by the people there, but it takes an extraordinary amount of work, I know, and just want to recognize you for your contribution. With that, anything else anyone wants to add? Okay, we will move on. This is normally the time we have for public input, and we have no one in the gallery at this point tonight, but I would encourage anyone who is listening or watching our YouTube channel to say that we appreciate your presence online or listening after the fact, but our public time at the beginning of our meetings is a wonderful opportunity for you to convey concerns you may have or comment on topics that we are discussing at council. You can always find the agenda on our website and stay in touch with the activities. But we certainly welcome public to all our meetings, and it is a chance for us to get important feedback on things that we're working on. So I continue to reinforce the importance of public input in all our discussions. With that, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. If I could have a motion to approve the agenda, moved by Councillor Smith.
I just wanted to suggest a change. I wondered if we could move the public engagement and communications report up to before the app, just because there's so much relevant content about the app in the report.
Okay, we will do that. Do you want to move the approval of the agenda with that revision?
Yes.
Okay, moved by Councillor Smith. Do we have a seconder for the agenda? It's Councillor Burns. All those in favor signify by raising their hand. Motion is carried unanimously. The minutes of the council meeting of June 10th were circulated. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, I'll declare the minutes approved as circulated. The minutes of the June 24th council meeting were circulated. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, I declare those approved as circulated. Do we have any business arising from the minutes? No. And we have the awarding of tenders, but we are going to move to the report of the communications, whatever we're calling it. All of a sudden, I just went blank. Thank you very much.
Okay, everyone, yeah, you can hear me okay. Great. Welcome. Thanks for joining today. We're going to talk about the Municipal Matters Public Engagement and Communications Survey. So we'll go over an introduction and background, talk about how we engaged, some limitations to the survey, then we'll look at the survey results and recommendations. So we conducted the survey through to ask residents how they receive information and how they participate in municipal initiatives. It was an overwhelming success in terms of number of respondents, one of our highest surveys ever. We received 718 responses, directly attributed to the fact that it was in Municipal Matters, which goes to every household, published online and shared online extensively, and we had a gift card draw for $250 to the Best Western, and that always, when we offer a gift card for filling out a survey, always definitely increases the number. So the findings will help the future communication strategies and public engagement efforts. It was shared significantly throughout the term that it was open. It was open for about 8 weeks. Now, there are limitations to a survey of this kind, the primary one being it is not statistically representative of the municipality. About 2.7% of the population responded. I can't tell you if that was just people who only read Municipal Matters or people who only like it or people who hate it. It could be interest groups specifically wanted to respond. It's not statistically relevant to the whole municipality. However, I do personally think it really is in line with what I've heard from residents about Municipal Matters. When I attend events, when I talk to residents, it does seem to cover the breadth of feedback that I receive. We did allow people to fill it out online or drop it off to their counselor. We even had some residents come in and ask staff to help them fill it out and help them read it out loud to them. So there was a lot of ways they could fill it out. So your agenda package has a detailed the detailed what we heard report with all sorts of comments, every comment we received. Today I'm just going to be going over the high level details. So we asked people how much of each issue do they receive, and some, most, or all was 90%. So a lot of people are reading it. We asked them if it's issued 4 times a year, if that's too much, not enough, or just right, and the majority of people, 77%, said just right. There was a proportion of 21% saying not frequent enough. They would like more of it. It's delivered as unaddressed bulk mail. That means it comes with the flyers. We asked if that's okay or if it's a problem. There's a substantial amount of people that said it's a problem, 23%, that they don't always receive it. We definitely have issues every time we deliver it with Canada Post. We haven't really fully been able to resolve that with our Canada Post reps. Sometimes certain post offices get way too many and sometimes not enough. So generally every issue, post offices call and I say, okay, we'll send a staff, or they'll send it off to a different post office location. But it's definitely more of a challenge too for people who live on border areas. So they're bordering, so we might get people in the town get it, and they shouldn't, and then people just outside town might not get it, and they should. We do offer it online digitally, though, for people who aren't receiving it, and anytime anyone calls the office, we send them out one as well. Or they can swing by the office and pick one up, and counselors are certainly welcome to distribute them as needed. We asked them if they found it easy to read, and it was a resounding yes. So 95% said yes. We asked about what kinds of topics they want to see covered, and generally community engagement and involvement was high up on that list. And that specifically, when we dive into the comments more, is not just about how they can engage with us as a municipality, but how we can share the stories of community more, share the stories of volunteerism more, share the stories of successful businesses more. Economic development and employment opportunities, I'd like to see more content in there. Content around housing and affordability, specifically how do they get access to affordable housing? What are we doing to promote affordable housing? Environmental awareness and sustainability, and then there are some other topics that came up. We asked in general, how do you rate the district's communication efforts overall? So acceptable or higher was 92%, but poor or lower was 6%. So there's definitely room for improvement. Good and acceptable were high. Excellent was not as high as I'd like to see it. So, you know, we have a nice stretch goal there where we can try and get that excellent up much higher. We asked people since January 2022, sort of giving them a 3-year window for their memories to go back that far. How have you engaged in online or in-person public engagement? Majority did say no, but 24% saying yes is actually very high. We asked them what stopped them from participating. I don't have time is definitely the number one. That was 30% of people said they don't have time. And we let them choose as many reasons, so it doesn't add up to 100% on this one. So they could say, I don't have time, I didn't hear about it, I don't know how to participate, or I don't believe my input would make a difference, which was pretty high too. We asked if they visited our engagement platform, and 61% have not. So that's a problem. We want to increase that number and get that. There's a lot of opportunity for growth there as well. When we asked how do they prefer to participate in public engagement, providing feedback online or engaging on Facebook or attending virtual events added up to a significant amount. So a lot of people do want to engage online, so it's getting that message out there of how they can do that is going to be important. And then a significant number still want to attend in-person events. A significant number want to provide their feedback directly to their counselors, and then a good amount of people want to get direct mail opportunities. And then some people are really honest and said, I don't want to participate, about 12%. We asked about if they receive our District of Lunenburg Digest, which was our monthly email newsletter. 55% said no, which is a big number, and we want to get that down. 24% said no, but you can sign me up. So we did have a big increase in signups. We're at like 1,300 signups now for that email newsletter. We do have a postcard going out in July to every single resident that will allow them to sign up online or write their email in it and drop it off to our office or to their counselor or however they want. So we're going to do a big push and try and get these numbers higher. The monthly email newsletter is a very timely way to reach people. It lets them click through links. It lets them get that email without having to be on Facebook especially. But they are almost all on Facebook. 90% of our residents, nearly 90% of the residents who filled out the survey are on Facebook. Now, of course, we advertise the survey on Facebook, so I would expect to see that high. Instagram or Threads is a little lower. X, very, very little. And then quite a few people said no, they're not on any social media at all. For the newspaper, the South Shore Breaker was the number one. South Shore Bulletin was about 30%. And then I Don't Read the Newspaper was pretty high as well. Radio station, CKBW, which is our primary radio station we advertise on, was quite high. And then when it came under other, that was mostly city stations or really small stations or things like podcasts. As Councillor Smith noted, there is some feedback on a municipal app. So question 17 asked, would you use a municipal app? And a resounding 63% said yes, and another 25% said maybe. So the maybes definitely were like, if you provide value, if I think it's useful. About 12% said, no, not interested. Their reasons were, I don't want another app on my phone. I don't have a smartphone. I don't use social media. I don't need more time. I don't want more screen time. We asked, other than the media that we listed, where do you get news? And friends and family was number one. So taking that into account, 80% are hearing from friends and family. The idea that we can create more shareable collateral materials that we can give to people to share with friends and family is a potential market for us. Also, for instance, when we do our evaluation of the Lunenburg County Climate Action Program, I don't remember how the actual acronym runs out, but the climate plan, we're talking about creating hosted workshops where we can give a little package to someone in the community and then they can invite their neighbors over and have a little social with their neighbors and watch a video and then answer some questions. So that's like a method of using that friends and family network. So we're going to try and explore more of those things. Specifically, I have 2 pages here of recommendations for municipal matters, specifically as that was the driver for doing this survey, is improve visual readability, add a reoccurring council in brief to talk about highlight important council decisions in one place, have a rotating councillor column, cover the topics that people are asking for, so especially public engagement in community, housing, jobs, and environment. Add a you asked and we answered or a myth versus facts. We've done a couple of those columns already on things like how do council reports work, or why do we keep having meetings at the Best Western or in this building instead of always going every series of meetings out. We want to promote the online version more frequently for broader access, and then include a resident or volunteer spotlight in every issue. So these are some of the things that we'll be looking to roll out over the next year or so in municipal matters. And then I've added a slide at the end, this is separate. We had talked during budget setting time about approving $13,000 set aside to hire a firm that would produce a statistically relevant survey of residents about municipal matters and how they want to be communicated with. So given that we did receive such a high response rate, and very varied feedback. Like there was lots of good things in here, but things saying that, no, you're not doing a good job. So we didn't get just our fans of municipal matters in this survey. I'd like to know if council wants me still to pursue another survey with a research firm. But again, this would be a random survey, so it wouldn't be people who are self-selecting. It would be fully random. And they'd be looking at, to be statistically relevant, they would cap it at about 400 responses. So we wouldn't get as many responses, but it could be different. So I'm looking for some direction from council. Do you think at this point it's still worth it? Did maybe the survey results really differ from what you hear when you talk about to people about municipal matters? Just looking for some direction there. I'm happy to give my recommendation if you want to know what I think. I don't think it's necessary. The survey is very aligned with what councillors have told me and staff and residents have told me, but I'm certainly happy to pursue that if you want to spend that money.
Well, we'll open it up for discussion on some of the elements that you brought forward in the report, as well as if anyone wants to make a comment on the decision regarding a further study that would be statistically significant. Councillor Bell and then Councillor Moore.
Thank you. Well, spending $32 per questionnaire seems to me to be quite a high figure. I wouldn't be interested in having 400 responses at $32 a piece. If we were going to do any other response, it wouldn't be in that method. I'm satisfied with the report you've given. I think you've learned a lot. Although you did say we can't measure the exact column where they came in, I still think they are quite representative of what the general thought is.
Councillor Moore.
I agree. I'm also satisfied with what we have in front of us. You only got so many people that will do surveys. I think we captured the gist of it, and I'm willing not to move forward on the next one.
Councillor Burns and then Councillor Smith.
If I was quicker witted, I'm sure I could come up with a joke about needing a survey to determine the survey. But I do think here that we have what we need, and we were well intentioned in the budgeting process to say, hey, we want to go out and get this answer, but we got an answer I feel cheaper than what we had anticipated. So that would be my thought.
I just wanted to know a bit more about how responses were collected and what proportion were paper in the municipal matters and how many came in online.
So we had about 40 paper copies come into the office, which we then typed into the system for those residents. The majority were online, so 670 were just done online.
Did you have a further question, Councillor Smith, on that?
No, I think I've raised a number of times. I just continue to have questions about the accessibility of an app in our area. And so when I see stats, like survey results, where people say, what was the, 63% of respondents would use the app. But presumably, a very high proportion of those people were filling out a survey online.
Yeah.
So I guess my question continues to be, how are we actually understanding the communication needs of the wider public who are not online? And I just, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It's because the number of residents who reach out to me in a week who do not use an email, they do not use social media, and, I just feel like I'm not getting enough information about the actual ways that people. Maybe it's about the demographics.
Yeah, I wonder if we could propose that you and I sit down and we could look at maybe doing a focus group with people who we know. Maybe councillors could send us contact information and say, I know these residents, they're not online, And maybe we can invite them to come in, or we could call them and talk to them and say, like, how could we communicate with you? It is sometimes a challenge. We'll get people post on our Facebook posts and say, I didn't know about this event. And, you know, when you question them more, they say, well, I don't read the paper. I don't listen to the radio. I don't read Municipal Matters. No, I don't have, like, there's a lot that, like, it's really challenging to figure out how to reach them in any sort of cost, you know, like, fiscally responsible way, because sending direct mail to every household is extremely expensive. But maybe we could do like a small focus group and try and figure out, that wouldn't give us statistically represent though of how many of those people there are in the municipality, but maybe we could understand better how we could reach them.
Well, I mean, one suggestion might be to drop in on some of the digital literacy groups that are happening
Right.
in the 644, because, you know, those are obviously people who are struggling with smartphone use, and they have smartphones. So just getting a better understanding of what their issues are and accessibility needs and what the learning curve is for people, maybe. Anyway, I feel like it's been a bit of a stumbling block for me, but sometimes when we do these surveys, I just feel like, it's like with the climate survey, you know, when everything's online, how much of the population are we actually hearing from? But that said, I love this survey. I don't want to do another one. And it does confirm everything that I've been hearing about municipal
But I think we can
matters.
explore that more, and we can talk about that later too.
Deputy Mayor Vino.
Thank you. I as well don't think we need to move forward and have another survey, but I do want to make a comment on the, in the agenda package, the actual survey results and how it was compiled. Don't always get excited to read those reports, but this was put together very well. It was easy to read. I don't know if it was yourself or the.
I'll tell you why, because I had the time and the money to send it out to an agency to help
Yeah.
me with that. So I will
Yeah.
give full credit to the agency who pulled this together.
But as a
They did great
template
job.
for future surveys, the way this was put forward was excellent.
Yeah, I used
to
a local company out
capture
of
it.
Mahone Bay for this.
Yeah, so just wanted to comment on that. It was very, very well put together and easy to read. And I like that the questions included the respondents and with charts and everything. So kudos to both
I'll pass that
you
on to
and
Lemonade.
them.
Councillor Oikel and then Councillor Hubley.
Thank you. I just want to say I also don't think we need to do it again, and many of the answers were very similar to the things that I have heard. Also, it's really great to see that 88% of the people would be interested in an app, because if you put the maybes with the yes, right, that's 88. And I remember that Councillor Hubley said that about Bridgewater has one, and I happened to be in the town of Bridgewater, and people were using it in a meeting that I was at to find out the best way to get away from where they were because of the parade.
Right.
And they just looked at the app to know which way to exit the building that they were at because they were driving. So I can see that it'd be very helpful. And, you know, when you consider 88% of the people in our municipality, that's quite a large number of people that it would be a benefit to have, I think.
Councillor Hubley.
Thank you. So I agree with what Councillor Smith is saying, that it's an age-old problem when we're trying to reach the people that are not online and they have a smartphone and maybe aren't really tech savvy, and I would like to see us continue to strive to reach those people. Just a comment, and I am satisfied with the survey results. It does reflect what I was hearing also.
Okay, I think our last comment on this, and then we maybe can move to go back to the tender.
Sure.
Alex, did you want to make a comment? Oh, okay. Is there any further comment? I think the consensus is that this is adequate. There are clearly items within the results where we can measure impact and where we need to focus in terms of doing a better job, which I think is really good when we have a goal and we have a benchmark, and then we can measure this in another year or 2 years, do another survey, and then see where we get to. So I think there's plenty of content there. And I do think that the opportunity to have a small group discussion, particularly in the 644 area where there is already some people gathering regularly on digital literacy would be a good focus group to work with. So I think that was a good suggestion. Anything else? Because we'll move back then to agenda number 7.1, which is the award of an RFQ 2024-01307 on the municipal app. So
Great.
if you're going to take us with that.
So for those watching from home, we had the initial presentation 2 full weeks ago that sort of outlined how we got to today of looking to talking about what app to introduce. So I had been prepared, or brought an initial report about giving the tender to the only applicant, which was a product called InfoGrove from a company called 14 Oranges. So at that time, council brought up an alternative app called Alertable that they wanted me to look into a little more. So the report in front of you today is very similar to the report from 2 weeks ago, with an added section that talks about the app comparison. So Alertable, there's a little chart in there if you want to turn to, I don't know what page it is in your agenda, but second page of my report. So Alertable is a high quality but very targeted public alert system. So it's very quick to deploy, and it's great for emergencies and when you don't need a response need. But in contrast, InfoGrove is a fully customizable civic engagement platform with a whole suite of tools, and where you stay in the app. You do the things in the app. So there's a little screenshot after the chart. You can sort of see screenshots from Alertable, and there are basically only 2 screens in an Alertable app, because it's an emergency alert app. So you see the front page, which is the left screenshot, that has either true emergency alerts in red or yellow, or information, and that's in green. And then the second screen is when you click on one of those alerts, it takes you to the alert, and that's it. That's the only 2 screens you'll ever see in that app. In contrast, in the InfoGrove app, where there's screenshots in there, all of those front page icons lead to different places in the app. So you stay in the app and you learn things. You can visit things, you can look at tourism, you can look at trail maps, you can look at garbage, growth, learn about projects, submit feedback. It all stays within the app. However, Alertable does have the bonus of being able to send any alerts, including these information only, to text to your phone outside of the little app. You know, when an app has a notification and there's a little red icon, both the apps will do that, but Alertable can also, you can choose and say, send me a text through my phone text service, or call me on my landline and leave me a message. So Alertable has that feature, and they offer it for both the emergency and non-emergency, as long as the resident signs up for that. So the resident isn't always in charge of which ones they receive. Now, if they don't have a smartphone to even sign up for it, they would have to call our office, and we would walk them through doing it for them. They'd call us, we'd put their information in, we'd hang out while the system called them and gave them a code, and then they'd call back. So they could self-sign up for that kind of thing. I had a conversation last week with InfoGrove to ask them, is this a feature that you're ever looking at doing or would be interested in doing? And what InfoGrove told me is they actually have it in their 2-year work plan to introduce a tool like that, where the updates on a specific page in the app would send out a text alert, like here's the update, or also a phone call, text to talk phone call. However, if we wanted to invest in that and have them do it sooner and customize it and do it right now for us, there is a price tag attached. It's $30,000. It's a lot of money to cut out 2 years of waiting, but there's still no guarantee that they would have that option in 2 years. So we could wait. If we picked InfoGrove, we could wait and say, let's see when they introduce it and we'll get that feature, and that's great, it's coming. But there's still no guarantees. They're not promising us it'll be launched in 2 years. It could be never launched if they decide it's too difficult or there's not enough interest from municipalities to add that feature to their program. Alertable has that feature now. So then I also spoke with Alertable just to ask them about their screenshots and how their app worked, and they just said it is what you see. It's a 2-screen program. They have no intention to make it more like another municipal app where there's information and things like that. This is what it is what you get and what you're always going to get. Then I also had a conversation with the Department of Emergency Management with the province. They are introducing an emergency alert app for Nova Scotia next month. They said July. I'm going to say next month. So probably by August, and that is going out to all municipalities. It's going to cover the entire province, and residents are going to be encouraged to download it. There'll be a major advertising campaign. However, it will not be for non-emergency alerts. It will just be strictly for emergency alerts. So they're two very different products, really, and that's what I'm looking from council is like, which one are you interested in? Is this to solve a problem of municipal communications and all the sort of feedback of what people wanted to hear about with us in terms of community engagement and profiles and economic development and jobs? InfoGrove can do all that. Now, Alertable can do that, but it's definitely not as user-friendly, as easy, as organized, because it is in its heart an emergency alert app. But it would allow that text to phone feature.
We'll open up for discussion, but just to comment, I think initially, when we first talked about this during budget planning, it was around the latter of what you've spoken, as a piece of our communication enhancement. And I think our discussion really evolved to include a discussion around the emergency alert. And, you know, there are, as we've heard in the Texas situation, you know, the emergency alert didn't help many people because it went in the middle of the night, and and many people didn't either hear it or even receive it. So it has its, you know, even in the best intentions, it still has limitations. So, but just to put it in the right context before we get into a discussion, it was originally for communication purposes. Councillor Oikle.
Thank you. So I'm assuming that Alert isn't going to call people up with the surveys and ask them all the questions, and then
No.
they tell it, right?
Definitely
Or
not.
the info on Engaged, or the information about transit, or when our council meetings are, or any of those things, right?
So Alertable would have the option, so people could opt in and say, oh, I want to hear all these, I want a phone call for all of these categories. And then when I write the information that goes on, I would have to write a very tight summary, because they have time limits on these messages, a tight summary that says, like, there's a new survey about climate change. I mean, if we know for sure these are going to people who are only on landlines, it's even sometimes challenging to figure out how we tell them to do the action. What action do we have them take, right? So it would be, there's a new survey on climate action. Call us to learn more about how you can participate. And then our staff would have a number where they could call and we could say, well, it's online. Are you online? You could do it online. If you're not online, your counselor has paper copies, or we can mail you a paper copy, or you can come into the office to fill it out.
Just follow up on that. Yeah, as a person who has gotten voice calls on my landline, I don't want that. I don't want them constantly calling me and telling me all these things, right? And so I personally would support your recommendation of the 14 Orange Software Company.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you. I support the 14 Orange software. And if the province is coming up with something that complements what we have, people have the choice to take one or both at some point in time. If Orange's software was able to send us an upgrade version in 2 years or whenever it's developed, at maybe not the full price at the time. If when we purchase, it's quite usual for other softwares that if you buy the original software, you get a chance to update it for a cheaper price. Sometimes so you need to put that in the original sale, so that would be a consideration. And as far as myself getting text messages or voice messages for every event and everything, it wouldn't be long before I discontinued it. It's the same as when I buy something online and they send me and want to know, well, do you want to upgrade to this? Guess what? I don't buy from them anymore. When I want to buy something or I want a service, I go and seek it. But I don't like them seeking me, especially when it becomes repetitious.
Any other, Councillor Smith?
I wanted to ask you a bit more about the emergency app for Nova Scotia. I think when we were at the NSFM Spring Conference, they said that that was going to be an alertable. It was going to be.
I believe so. Or I asked them if it was alertable and they said no, but he didn't seem confident in it. So, and I wasn't talking to any of their tech team.
Yeah, because I think it was some other people were at that session too. They were talking about Nova Scotia Guard and other emergency services, management services issues, and they had said then that they were launching Alertable. And, yeah, I'll be fine to support whatever the majority goes with, but I continue to feel like I mean, maybe part of this is that I don't particularly love apps. Like I don't really download a lot of apps if I don't need them. And especially if I feel like if it's replicating something that I can easily find somewhere else. I'm more of a desktop person. But sometimes I feel like we're giving a lot of information and a lot of access to information and not necessarily like streamlining and letting people know what is important right now. So like our website is a great example of that. Like it's a great archive. You know, you can go in there and find, you know, committee meeting notes from like the last decade. But can you actually find what's really kind of, can you really tell like what's the thing we need to engage with right now? It's a little harder. So I actually prefer something that's simplified and streamlined, like the Alertable app. I use it and I follow other towns just to see what they're doing. And it can be quite attractive depending on how they use it. Yarmouth, I noticed, uses a lot of images and has a lot of links. I find it very useful and informative, but it's also simple. Some apps, and I hope if we, you know, if we're going to go ahead with the Oranges, 14 Oranges software, it's just that we keep it as simple as possible and not allow a lot of kind of digital noise build up, because I've looked at a few other apps that are very similar for other towns, and sometimes there's just a lot of extra stuff that leads nowhere, or it's outdated and someone forgot to take it off. Anyway, but I'll continue to think about how we can reach the people who are offline.
I think as that survey showed, it's a constant battle. For every person who wants less information, just tell me the headlines. There's other people who are like, no, give me more, let me dive deep. We have lots of tools. Not any one of them is going to be everything for any person. So some like this, some will like this, some will like that. But I definitely see we still do have a gap of the not online, and you and I can explore that for sure more. But this app is unlikely, any municipal app, I think, is unlikely to resolve that.
I think one of the things that's challenging, and it came through, I think, in the survey as well, is that there are many segments of the market, being our residents, that get information in very different ways. And when you see that family and friends is a large number in terms of how people get information, wow. And the fact that we do not have newspapers the way we used to, people, whole segments of the market don't read a newspaper anymore, don't even think about maybe don't even know what a newspaper is or should be. So I think that what we're struggling with is that some of us are locked in various stages of the communications revolution. And so we see it our way, and what we need to do is collectively think about all the ways. And I think you've been trying to get at that. And I think what this piece, if we look at an app, is one piece of a big strategy of communication vehicles. And it may not appeal to all of us, but there will be segments of the market that will find it appealing. And yes, we do get our information in very different ways, and I think that's what's really important. It isn't that one is better than the other. These complement each other, and what we're trying to get at is to reach as broad a market, I call it market, broad a range of our residents as possible, and this is one piece of it. So if someone would, I'm not seeing a lot of other discussion on this, but if someone would put the motion on the floor, we could have further discussion. Councillor Hubley.
Thank you. To Mayor McLean-Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council award RFQ 2024-01-307 Municipal App to 14 Oranges Software, Inc. for the sum of $9,500 plus HST for setup and up to $13,350 plus HST as approved in the 2025-2026 operating budget for subsequent licensing and support. And I so move.
We have a seconder for the motion. Councillor Burns, seconded. Just a quick question. The $13,350, that's an annual charge?
It is annual.
That's an annual
Yeah,
licensing
so the first
charge.
year, we're going to buy the gold package, which gives us access to Google Analytics, so we can see very specifically how many people downloaded it, what they're looking at, how much time they're spending on the app, which pages that they're visiting. I'm not sure that we would need to pay for that every year. Maybe we pay for that every third or fourth year, just to save some money, because it's half the price if you're not paying for the Google Analytics access. So maybe it's every couple of years we pop back on and see how are we doing, but I'd like to try and save some money annually in that if we can.
Okay. Other questions, discussion? Councillor Oikman.
Can you just remind us how much we budgeted for this on our
I
budget
believe
for
it
this
was
year?
$30,000 for the first year.
Okay, wonderful, thanks.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. We will move on. There are no presentations, but we will move on to correspondence. Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. So you'll see in your package correspondence that we've received from the town of Lunenburg with respect to a request that council consider a boundary change that would assist the town in moving a piece of property that's currently in MODL into the town of Lunenburg in an area that's currently subject to residential development, and the benefits that they see would alleviate bylaw enforcement issues, discrepancies in property taxation, complications for delivery of town services, and zoning questions. So the recommendation is that council just refer this back to staff for report and recommendation, and we'll bring it forward to council in the future. I can also advise you that we're likely to receive a similar request from the town of Mahone Bay. We have suggested to them the form we would like to see it come back to us if they want to make the request. But they have a particular piece of property that is it's problematic from their perspective, and they would like to make a request to council to rezone or change the boundary to put this particular piece of property wholly within the town of Mahone Bay. So I expect that will be coming from their council sometime soon. But we would go ahead with this report and recommendation even in the absence of that request, and then bring it back to council for more consideration.
Deputy Mayor Vino, I know you've dealt with this
Yes.
little piece of property.
It's a unique piece. When I was canvassing to residents, I would have to drive into town of Lunenburg to reach this piece, and it's a quad with 4 apartments. 2 apartments are in town of Lunenburg, and 2 are in District of Lunenburg. So there actually was a case, a town of Lunenburg councillor was knocking on their door, and I was in the same building knocking on the other. It doesn't make sense. This is a good thing to get cleaned up and tidied up, especially because it's the same building. And it just matters if you're in units 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whether you're in the town or the district.
Councillor Moore.
So the residents, will they be communicated to? Because definitely if they're living in our municipality, they're definitely going to be paying more taxes if they live within the town of Bridgewater and town of Mahone Bay. So I'm just hoping that this communication done. What?
It's a rental unit, so it would go to the land owner.
So, sorry, just there's someone in the lobby. So the report and recommendation will come back to council, and
Okay.
we'll outline the issues and how we propose to resolve them, including notice to
Okay.
impacted stakeholders.
Perfect, thank you.
Counselor Oikle?
Yes, I have no problem with this particular piece of property because it is a rental and it's just relatively small and it doesn't make sense for an apartment building to be cut in half like that. But we did have someone in my district that was on Pearl Street that was looking to have their property migrated into the municipality. And it didn't get very far with council. And I'm just wondering if, because I had written, it had gone in camera, and I had asked if whether or not more information was sent to the landowner regarding the decision that was talked about. And I'm just wondering if anything has gotten.
I think we should stick to the discussion on this
Well,
particular
I'm just
point.
worried that you start with one, you're going to have a snowball of a lot.
So this is a request from a municipal unit to another municipal unit to change their common boundary. This is not initiated by a resident. So it is a different process. And for this to go ahead in the smoothest fashion, both units have to agree. If one unit disagrees, there's a hearing at the UARB. So there are different approaches, and then the different approaches have different processes to follow. So this particular one is municipal unit to municipal unit, and it's a bit of a different process than if it was initiated by a resident and one unit didn't agree with the change.
Right, yeah, because both units have to agree with any change of property lines, regardless whether it's initiated by a municipal unit or by a resident, correct? They both would have to agree.
To avoid a hearing, both units have to agree, and there can be no objection. If it's initiated by a resident, and there is an objection, then there's a hearing at the UARB on the merits of the boundary change.
I still think that this is going to open a lot of people around all our municipalities going to also make requests as well. Not that I have a problem with doing it in this particular incident, but I just think we should be aware that it's probably going to cause a lot of different people to think, oh, well, it's running through my living room, or it's half of my business, or whatever.
We'll deal with them as they come up. But this is the request that's on the table now from our neighboring municipality. Councillor Burns.
I was just going to quickly say, and this is probably a byproduct of living my day job in 6-minute increments, our request tonight is primarily to look at whether staff are going to come back with a review and recommendation. So I would say let's let them come back with the review and recommendation.
Any further comment? Okay, yep, direction is given. We will move on then to recommendations from committees and boards, which is Regional Growth Management Committee, which is you again.
So the Regional Growth Management Committee met on June 24th, 2024. The mayor, the deputy CAO of MODL, the mayor, and the CAO of the town of Bridgewater attended. And as a means of gathering up the information that is pertinent to discussions between the town and MODL, there was it's termed as a recommendation of topics to begin discussions. And it is direct staff to compile information pertaining to growth and infrastructure planning for presentation to the town of Bridgewater, and direct the committee to begin intermunicipal collaboration planning on transit service, water agreements, wastewater services, planning for growth as a region, and fire services. And so many of those topics are subject to work right now. Like, we are currently working on transit service, we're working on water agreements, we're working on wastewater services. Planning for growth as a region has been taking place. We have to give notice to our municipal neighbors when we're changing our planning strategy. And fire service is a continuing and ongoing discussion. So the recommendation that's coming forward today, it's limited to those two things, but in principle and in practice, for the committee to take on issues for discussion, the motions are initiated by the councils and sent to the committee for discussion. But this is just regarded as a means to jumpstart the discussion and get the information that's required to have, meaningful discussion at that committee in the future.
And I should say, Counselor Bell was at that meeting as well.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. And just a comment, and then if there's questions, we have a couple of motions from this. It was clear from the first meeting that there was need for education on both councils, both the town of Bridgewater and for our council, to have a better understanding about how we operate and what projects we're working on, because it became very clear when the town began discussing issues around infrastructure and their challenges over the next essentially 10 years of replacing pipes and developing infrastructure to support the growth that they have already in the pipeline and expect more. It became clear it was a very different conversation and focus for those councillors as opposed to what we do. We don't spend a lot of time talking about sewage, sewer systems, and water systems where they do. And so I think we concluded at the end of that meeting that there was real value in having staff prepare, each of the staffs, prepare an outline of the work that's going on and the work that would relate to the work of this committee, and that it would be shared with all, we would have a joint meeting of this council with the town of Bridgewater so that everyone would hear that information. And it would be a starting place because we need to understand each other better than what we do now in order to be able to effectively have discussion and conversation about some of these issues that has been outlined. So that the intent is that will happen early in the fall. And I'm thinking it's maybe the October meeting, but that's to be confirmed. But staff will put presentations together. All council members will be invited to that kind of education session. So that came out of the discussion, our real startup of our work, and really establishing a regular schedule for meetings, because we agreed we needed to meet more regularly in the first year, maybe the first 2 years, till we got things going. And then from that, we realized there was an education piece that was needed. So I'm happy to answer any questions as well. Otherwise, Councillor Oikel.
Would the Public Service Commission be part of that for us to understand how they work and their function within the water system of the town of Bridgewater? Because it would be separate, because they are a separate entity from the town, correct?
They are separate, although the majority of their members are council members. So as you have the mayor in particular at a meeting, he is privy to both information for the town and the Public Service Commission. No, David Mitchell.
That's a reason why we need to have, yeah, but I think the Public Service Commission, how they operate and work is a little bit different and would be very beneficial to council, especially regarding the water tower and all that.
I don't think that was discussed.
The Public Service Commission wasn't part of the conversation, but I think the broader issue of water and wastewater treatment were where we needed to focus. And I think the implications for how we manage that going forward is part of the conversation, but I think we didn't speak specifically about the Public Service Commission being present or involved.
I think that it should be something that perhaps you could bring back to the committee and see whether or not they would be interested in coming and also talking to council, because of the water tower that we've been, anticipating and working towards and trying to understand the whole concept of why it needs to be bigger and the water flow to it, and that you need to pay for the infrastructure and then they pick it up afterwards. There's just a lot of things that I think a lot of people on council don't know about or understand.
So I don't know if it's helpful, but all the members of the Public Service Commission would be at a meeting that's attended by Bridgewater Town Council, except for the public members who likely know the least about the system. But Town of Bridgewater staff, CAO, and likely their Director of Engineering, could be in attendance as staff support to answer operational questions. Particular questions about the water tower that you just raised are all subject to a design point report that's being prepared and should be received by us in October. That will answer all the questions related to the water tower, the size, the changes in the water system. So that will all come back to council in October.
Alex?
And I think to Tom's point, they are interrelated. In the meeting, the notes say the hope was that there could be education on each other's infrastructure and development patterns, processes, and pressures. You can't understand the infrastructure situation or the pressures and the issues with development without knowing some information about the water system, which is what's run by the utility. So I don't think it's a no, but I think that it wasn't discussed around, for example, governance of the water utility or the specifics of what one particular infrastructure project. But I think you're asking more like the general system.
Well, when I was the deputy mayor in the last session, I went to a meeting with the mayor at the time, and how the Public Service Commission works and how infrastructure is given to them and their role in the water system was very interesting and was very informative. And I think that that information, if it's going to come at that presentation, is great. Just that I think council really should be hearing it as well.
We have a meeting in August, so we can convey the need to relate the water planning and its relationship and how that works with the Public Service Commission as part of that, Wendy. So we'll make sure that gets included. Any, Deputy Mayor Vino, did you want to add anything from the meeting, or Councillor Bell?
Nothing really to add, just to say that it was a good kickoff. I think that we're going to see commonality as we move through this, and it's great to have that relationship established now, and it will make working on projects more successful as we go forward.
I was encouraged by the enthusiasm around the table and willing to talk. I felt more easy having the group in the room when just a few years ago we didn't want to talk to each other. So I think it's a very positive step, and we need to do what steps need to be taken. And I do think we currently have a request to have a seat on the Bridgewater Public Service Commission. Well, we've had that discussion. Have we ever sent the actual request?
I know we've had the discussion, but
It's not since I've been here.
yeah, but it would have been quite some time ago. And my recollection is that one of the challenges was that the at-large positions are full, and to add another position would require a change to the legislation. But my recollection was it wasn't a hard no, but it wasn't an encouraging yes, but that was in a different time.
It might be a good thing to find out when the current seats that are public go vacant or dormant, that we encourage a counselor from MODL to apply for a seat. They can only say no, or they may say yes, but then they don't have to change their plan or their current charter or whatever they're working under. But I think that could be a good working relationship and be able to exchange ideas and information. But I don't see it as a negative move. I see it as only a positive move. And it would complement what we're trying to do here as well.
We'll take that and see how the first few meetings evolve. I think we need to be, I'm not against it, but I think we need to be slow and steady on this, and there needs to be a good working relationship, I think, to have the discussion. And I expect it will come up when we start talking about water and and the shared interest in the water, because we are the beneficiaries of that. We also hold the water in our district, but we also use it here. So there will continue to be issues with the water and our role in the Public Service Commission as we go forward, as we look at how we are going to share on some of these decisions and some of the activities as we go forward from this committee. So there are a couple of motions related to this. If I could ask Deputy Mayor Vino to table one, please.
To Mayor McLean Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Regional Growth Management Committee and direct staff to compile information pertaining to the growth and infrastructure planning in the municipality for presentation to the town of Bridgewater, and I so move.
Do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Bell. Any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. And the second one, Councillor Deputy Mayor Vino, would you like to bring that one forward too?
Sure. To Mayor McLean Weil and members of council, I move that Municipal Council accept the recommendation of the Regional Growth Management Committee and direct the committee to begin intermunicipal collaboration planning on transit service, water agreements, wastewater services, planning for growth as a region, and fire services, and I so move.
And we have a seconded by Councillor Hubley. Is there discussion on the motion? Councillor Oikel.
Could you clarify a little bit more regarding the fire services, please?
What specifically do you want?
Like what is the Regional Growth Committee thinking of regarding intermunicipal collaboration and planning regarding fire services? Because are they not independent entities?
They are, but the issue becomes as our community grows and we have services in town and services here, then we need to think about how we're going to manage to have good fire coverage for those areas. So it is tied in with the whole issue around growth, is how you service that. And that is at a very high level. It didn't go any further than that to think about how we might manage that and what level of service are we going to need going forward. Anything with fire service is going to require a long horizon for development and planning. And as we know, that fire service, it's challenging for volunteers, and the town is finding that as well. So it seems to be another shared common thread, particularly when we know we're going to have growth, and how can we provide that service effectively. Often when one is called, when there's a fire in the area, the town of Bridgewater is called as well, so.
And that's exactly what I thought it was all about, but I just wanted it to kind of to be said, because I think that some people may think it might be something different. So I appreciate you clarifying what I already thought. Thank you.
Any other questions on the motion? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, so the transit service planning, so will all that planning now take place at that table?
Well, it's well underway right now. I would say it's well underway. And I would say that for the next round of development of transit, it would start there or come from council to there. But I think right now, as you know, our focus is on serving Hebbville, Wildville, and Osprey Village, and I'm going to report on that in my mayor's report on the progress on that. And but I think the longer term view is that recognition that transit service, this is a beginning of how we might want to look at how we service a broader area in the district of Lunenburg, and that would come from that committee, yes, in the long term. But right now it's going, and the CAOs are working back and forth. Mayor Mitchell and I have been meeting on this, so and you'll hear about that later on. So does that address what you were concerned about?
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to get a sense of like how the work is going to be happening and how it's going to be flowing. You know, where, like, I know that we say that recommendations are coming from councils to the committee, but it feels a lot like there's going to be a lot of recommendations also from this committee to councils. And like, it can't really function any other way, I don't think. But it's a very, I look forward to being able to attend some of the committees as one of the public participants and just see how it goes. And it's not that I'm not supportive of the committee at all. It's just trying to figure out how this new relationship is going to play out and how we can all still manage to feel like we know what's going on with all of these issues, because they're ones that we all have responsibility for as counselors.
And I think, and that's a fair comment, I don't think we know exactly how it's going to flow, to be frank. We have terms of reference for the committee, and I think the concern was in making sure that issues came from council, were approved at council before they went to that committee, was that, so everybody knew what was going on, and that there was nothing tabled or worked on at that committee that didn't have the support of the councils to put it there to work on collectively. So I think that's really important. So it is a little awkward to know, like, one of the things we'll have to decide early on is what are the priorities out of those things that we've listed in this motion. What are the things that are priorities for us to deal with, and then how will that work flow? And this is the work. These items are big things, and our staff are already have a lot on the go. So we have to look at how that works into work plans, and that's, you know, that gets reflected in what comes back here as well. But the meetings are open, as you know, they're open to the public, so that means that any counselor can attend. And they're all scheduled, you have them in your schedule now. And so, you know, we'll take one meeting at a time, and I think that's the best I can say at this point. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, or raise your hands. Motion is carried unanimously. We'll move on to staff reports, economic development. Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Worship and Council. Speaking of regional collaboration, I've got a presentation here in regards to a regional economic development partnership project that we've been working on with the Town of Bridgewater, Town of Lunenburg, Town of Mahone Bay, Region of Queens, District of Chester, and ourselves. Basically, we applied for a grant. I just want to review the purpose of the grant, what we applied for, and then there is a recommendation, a request for council on this particular grant. I just wanted to give a high-level update on our Economic Development Regional Working Group. We've been working together ever since I started 18 years ago. It's kind of come and go with various partners in the group, but currently the group is Bryant Webb with the District of Chester, Donna Hatt with the Town of Bridgewater, Mark Kelly with the Town of Lunenburg, Richard Lane with the Region of Queens, myself, and the Town of Mahone Bay doesn't actually have a rep, so we keep Dylan, their CEO, informed as much as possible. So just before we go into the request, we just wanted to highlight some of the regional projects that we've worked together. Some of these projects the district works on with our partners, some we don't. It depends on the project as it comes forward. But just to give a sense on some of the projects that we've worked on the last couple of years, the Regional BRE program, the Bioeconomy Development Zone, Investment Attraction, Agriculture Days, Clean Fuel Study, the Retail Gap Analysis and the Accommodation Gap Analysis, Local Immigration Partnership, the Housing Market Data Project, the Marketing Levy and Tourism Development, launch of the International Michelin Cities, Small Business Week, and a number of other projects. So back in 2023, 2024, our group got together and kind of suggested perhaps we become a little bit more formalized. We wanted to see what kind of more formal process we could have. We looked at a grant that was available with Municipal Affairs. So after quite some time, we submitted a grant with Municipal Affairs on April 23rd, 2025. The grant included all of the municipal units in Lunenburg County as well as the municipal unit in Queens County. The name of the project is Regional Economic Partnership Study. The project dates are July 1st to March 31st. It's under the Municipal Innovation Program. The request we made under this particular grant was $50,000 to help fund the study, and the total project estimate is $1,000, actually says $105,500 is actually $107,500. That number is incorrect. Just to give a sense of the scope of work, what we want to do is research and identify current economic development plans in other areas, those in Nova Scotia, as well as other areas in the country. Review the primary activities of the local municipal units, identify where elements can benefit Lunenburg and Queens County, identify the possible partnerships that can be made and the benefits of the partnerships, identifying gaps or overlaps between what we do and what's done in the region, conduct engagement with the business community, as well as to understand the benefits of how we work together. So some more is to recommend a system and identify some matrix to evaluate the success of collaborating with other municipal units, identify how regional economic partnerships will align with the provincial government and how we work together, make recommendations on possible models and how possible models can be funded. We identified a timeline. Basically, the grant, we hope to have the grant approved fairly shortly from the provincial government. Councils are being asked about this in July, so to see if councils are interested in this particular project. Then we'll do a request for proposal in August, September, do the evaluation October through to March, and then bring something back to councils for additional feedback. Some anticipated impacts of doing this particular project. Again, we want to create collaboration for economic growth in the area. We want to focus on business growth and retention. We want to support business. We want to look at regional leadership and advocacy and increase revenue and economic prosperity. I will say we do these all individually, but we want to look at it more from a regional lens than just a specific individual municipal lens. Some project outcomes that we're looking at achieving. So obtaining a clear vision and mission moving forward, engagement and partnerships with various groups, conduct a comprehensive regional assessment, develop a strategic economic action plan, create funding and regional mobilization strategy, promote innovation and entrepreneurship, focus on infrastructure development, focus on development and education initiatives, create a marketing and branding strategy, some monitoring, so we identify how we monitor progress, and sustainability and inclusive. And with that, I'll open with questions.
Councillor Oykel and then Councillor Moore.
So will you also be looking at all the things that you listed here that you collaborated on? Is that part of it, to see how it all turned out? Like if it was effective or not, the collaboration? Will the study also do that with what you've already previously done?
It's a good point. We can certainly look at adding that to that. We hadn't considered that, to be perfectly honest with you, but something that we can add to the evaluation.
Yeah, I think it would be very beneficial to
Sure.
know what was working and what didn't work very well, or, and the one.
It's funny because we intended to look at that from what other regions were doing collaboratively and what worked and what didn't work. We didn't look at it from that lens, so it's a good point. So yes.
Councillor Moore?
I'm not against this because I know that when we had our budget, I mean, I voted in favor of the budget and this was part of it, but we've had this before. We've had the REN, and what was the one before that?
RDA.
RDA. Both dissolved because of issues of everybody not working together. What makes us think that it's going to work this time?
That's an interesting way. I had a discussion with the mayors and wardens, and if the CEO or the mayor want to add anything, they can. One of the things that was identified and was the region was too big prior. That was one of the biggest items. It was too stretched. And I make the argument that when they moved from the RDA to the REN, no assessment was made. It was just moved from one to another. We want to look at we're not trying to recreate the REN. We're trying to look at what makes sense for Lunenburg and Queens County. So we don't have any preconceived notion of what that model would look like, how it would work, any of that. We want to look at what the region needs, and from that bring some models or suggestions back. So having that evaluation will allow us to better understand what we're looking for and how it would work. There are lots of reasons why the previous one didn't work, but one of the ones was not doing a proper evaluation, and two, the area was too big.
Supplementary? And also, we all know after being through a lot of these regional things that when the funding formula gets put on the table, it's usually the District of Lunenburg that ends up paying the lion's share.
It is one of the metrics in the study to determine what that would be.
Yeah.
Councillor Oykel?
Yeah, and just in line with that, is there a particular reason why, since it's a study about our whole municipality and Queens, why we're paying the most? Like, why are we paying $20,000 when Queens is just almost as bigger than the municipality of District of Lunenburg, is it?
Yeah, it's,
Queens
so,
actually isn't.
yeah, so this is
No?
based on the normal formula. We are
Oh, it's
twice
just
as
on the
big.
normal, it is still based on the normal
Yeah.
formula.
The only oddity there is Mahone Bay is up to 2,500 when they should probably be 500.
Okay.
Bec-
All right, I was just wondering
So,
why.
and that came up at the mayors and wardens, that the thought was that Mahone Bay at the traditional formula of $5 per hundred, would be $500 here, was not sufficient. And so there was general agreement around the table to put them up. And then this is being presented to each of the councils from all the partner units to get approval for the funding, so that we're moving forward with the preparation of the RFP, and when funding is confirmed, we can move forward.
I know that for councillors that were involved in council prior to this term, and this has come up at the warden and with the wardens and mayor's meeting, the legacy from previous organizations is still lingering in people's minds, and I think that's what Councillor Moore is referring to. I guess what we're trying to look at is trying to look ahead to say this is a different time. Maybe we've learned some things from that experience that we won't repeat, and also to Mr. Waters' comment about looking at what has worked in other parts of the province is an important teaching piece to this. We are leaving money on the table, folks, and there are gaps in what we're doing as municipal units. And I will say this, that when at the mayors and warden meeting recently, you know, we had a very frank discussion about this. And, you know, when you think about it, we've got 5+ people working in economic development in this county of 49,000 people. That's as many as some small cities might have. Think about that. We need to figure out how we can harness our resources in a more collaborative way. Not that we're going to take things away from each other, but we're going to add value. And the example I give is that there isn't really any of the units that are working on issues around workforce development, and that means housing related to workforce development, training opportunities with a community college that exists right here, development of a labor strategy for the jobs that we need to fill in the next 10 to 15 years. How are we going to have people? And what is the succession for businesses in this community? Nobody is really addressing those. That's one gap that I can see that we're not addressing really collectively as a community. And so if we think about where the gaps are, that is what we have to think about. And I think that is what the economic development officers have already seen, that this is not about taking away from what we're doing. This is about adding value to the things that we can collectively benefit from. So I think that's underlying this. And I know it's hard, and I don't have that experience, so I'm sympathetic to those that have lived through the difficulties of previous structures around economic development. But I think we have to try to turn that leaf and figure out where are the gaps that aren't being addressed, and that could be the common thread that can hold us together. So that's enough of my comments, but Councillor Bell and then Councillor Hubley.
I will be reluctantly supporting this motion, and I will be supporting it based on the funding formula that is presented. It is fairer, in my opinion, than what it was.
So this is the funding for the study, so, yeah. Councillor Hubley.
I've always believed that we're better together. So if you don't get the grant, are the contributions from the municipalities enough to move forward the way you would like to?
No,
So if you
I'm
don't.
confident we're going to get the grant.
Okay,
Very confident.
all right. I'm going to hold you to it.
I will say just, and I hesitate to say this because I know I'm going to get some comments, but to the mayor's point, and I agree, workforce is a real opportunity for Lunenburg County, not the District of Lunenburg, but Lunenburg County. And I am working with the Western Wren, doing a connector program in the South Shore because the province wants to work through a regional body. That is not a good statement.
So we've had some discussion. Could we have the motion put on the floor? Councillor Moore, thank you.
Thank you. To the mayor and council, I move that the municipal council approve a financial contribution of $20,000 from the regional economic development budget towards a report that explores the opportunities to create a formal regional economic development partnership in Lunenburg and Queens County, and I so move.
And a seconder for the motion. Seconded by Councillor Hubley. Is there further discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by raising their hands. Motion is carried unanimously. We will move to Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Matters and MJSB update.
Yep, I have one.
Councillor Oikel.
Thank you. We had a meeting on June the 25th. The board approved the award of supply and delivery of a new excavator to Tidal Factory of Port Williams, Nova Scotia, in the amount of $188,900 plus HST. The board approved an increase of $4,061.49 in the capital budget for the Enhanced Security and Communications Project to allow for the purchase and installation of one thermal camera at the waste transfer station. The board also approved an award of tender 2025-002 concrete tipping floor demolition and reconstruction, as well as they approved an increase of $50,000 on a project budgeted from $150,000 to $165,000 to allow for engineering oversight and project contingency funds. The board directed staff to exercise the option to order organic collection carts based on the year 2 pricing of the 24-25 contract with GE Environmental to supply carts to the 3 municipalities with specific number of carts to be confirmed. The board also approved the expenditure of up to $10,000 to obtain an office space design, including recommendations as to square footage and layout, and directed staff to return to the board with an estimated of upfit and ongoing cost to relocate corporate office headquarters from 10 Aberdeen to one or more appropriate facilities within the municipal partners municipalities. And for your information, that the board accepted the 24-25 strategic plan year-end report. Partner councils authorized the MJSB staff to finalize contract negotiations with Circular Materials based on the opt-in service model for extended producer responsibility regulations regarding paper. The board has recommended by the Finance Committee approve the COO's 24-25 performance review based on satisfactory performance effective June the 30th, 2025, directed that the CAO's compensation be adjusted to level 5 on the COO's salary scale, approve the COO's 25-26 goals, which are aligned with the board's approved 25-26 strategic priorities. And the last item is that the board accepted the evaluation of the Lunenburg County Lifestyle Center as a shared service of MJSB and directed staff to present the evaluation's recommendations to the Lunenburg County Multipurpose Center Corporation for approval to proceed as proposed.
Any questions for Councillor Oikel? Okay, we'll move to Deputy Mayor Vino.
Thank you. As we heard about earlier, we had our first Regional Growth Management Committee meeting, so looking forward to being a part of that. And also, I don't think that we don't lack Canada Day events in Lunenburg County. There wasn't enough time in the day to hit everything that was going on. And kudos to all those organizers and the many volunteers who forfeit their own family and friend time to put on events for all of us to attend. These events would not run without the volunteers that stand behind them. Other than that, agenda briefings, check signings, and all meetings as assigned.
Thank you. My report as of today, we've talked a lot about the Growth Management Committee, and I think I've already outlined that this was an organizational meeting in which we discovered there was a lot to learn about each other and each other's work. And staff, as you heard, we agreed tonight to instruct our staff to be involved in this and to help in the town of Bridgewater's understanding of our work, as their CAO will prepare information on how they operate, and so we'll have a better understanding of how they work. We agreed to the joint educational meeting for the two councils in the fall, and going forward, these meetings will be publicly advertised and can be attended by any council member or member of the public. And they will alternate between the council chamber here and the council chamber in Bridgewater. These dates are now in your calendars. I did meet with David Maxwell, who is now the new chair of the Riverport Electric Commission, regarding the organization's current financial challenges. I know a lot more about their operation now after our CAO gave me the URAB decision for their general rate increase in April 2023. And that was the first since 2010, which may account for some of the financial challenges they are now experiencing. Our CAO and I met with the CAO and Mayor of Bridgewater to receive an update on the public transit project. And as of today, we know that the town of Bridgewater is requesting, and Tom will be, I think, involved in the drafting of a letter to the Nova Scotia Regulatory and Appeals Board to rule on a decision for whether they will want to be involved in the extension of bus service or whether it can be done under the current licensing of the town. Given that the 3 stops are short extensions of the existing service, we are all hoping the board will rule to extend the service without their involvement, which will reduce the time involved in creating this transit extension by several months. I, along with Deputy Mayor Vino and Councillor Brooks, attended a meeting hosted by Lunenburg Queens Business Collective to explore the opportunities for regional economic development, which really ties in with the conversation we just had. The meeting was well attended by mayors of Bridgewater, Mahone Bay, Lunenburg, the District of Queens, and wardens from Chester and the District of Shelburne, along with economic development officers and representatives of the various chambers of commerce and boards of trade. Everyone was in the room, and that, I think, was really important. The municipalities with Lunenburg and Queens shared the work that Mr. Waters just outlined on pursuing a study to identify potential models for regional economic development that could complement initiatives that were already taking place. The municipalities will, I think, we said at the meeting we wanted to await, given that we were hopeful everyone was going to join on to this from the municipalities, we would await the outcomes from that report before making any decision about involvement beyond that, and a recommendation for the structure would be clearer from that report. I did participate in Canada Day events in Pinehurst, Riverport, and New Germany, along with the multicultural events at the Lunenburg County Lifestyle Center. This is Pride Month, and I was happy to walk with MODL staff and councillors in the Pride Parade in Bridgewater. Many of you participated in the Pride flag raising earlier today. These are important statements about our belief in an inclusive community where everyone feels they have a home. I asked you about recognizing Truth and Reconciliation Day in September, and I had good feedback indicating an interest in our municipality doing some activity to recognize our role in this national initiative. Our next step is to see if other municipalities are planning activities. I know that Queens County has an extensive program, but our other municipal units within the District of Lunenburg, I think we would approach them. And we are also contacting the library to see if we can support or work with them in some other cooperative approach to a planned activity of some sort, which will be determined, because nobody had any ideas about what we should do other than a recognition that we should do something. And I think that concludes my report. I do not see anything else on the agenda. I would declare the meeting complete and adjourned.